Hey, welcome back to another episode of these crazy people who just eat meat and can't stop talking about it. My co-host isn't here yet, but he should be here soon, and I'm expecting someone else to drop in. So, anyways, I'll get things started because I know sometimes people are waiting, and we all have busy lives. So, again, it looks like my video and my audio are out of sync. Still haven't figured out exactly why that is, but I'm pretty sure nobody cares that much. So, anyways, today we're going to talk about carnivore cooking. And for people who are not necessarily familiar with um, the idea is that carnivores eat meat, and some of the primary things that they avoid is sugar. Um, Sugar comes in a lot of forms. For a lot of people, don't know this. Almost all carbohydrates break down into sugar. There are some of them that pass through us and don't break down, like cellulose or what's commonly known as fiber. So, why would we avoid fiber if it doesn't break down into sugar in our bodies? Well, the simple answer to that is that sugar, although it's been touted as a remedy for things like constipation or whatever, actually seems to be more of just an irritant. And it does come packaged with anti nutrients, as well as it has a tendency to bind with nutrients, which then just pass through your system and are not absorbed. So, most carnivore people in the community avoid all forms of carbohydrates, including, you know, what we commonly know as table sugar, like cane sugar, beet sugar, but also fructose. I know I've talked a few times about fructose. One of the problems with fructose, even though it doesn't typically raise blood sugar levels and typically does not inspire much in the way of elevating insulin levels, it does have to go to the liver to be processed, which some people view that extra taxing of the liver as a problem, some don't. But any excess energy from the processed fructose typically is stored as visceral fat, oftentimes in the liver, and contributes to fatty liver syndrome, one of the most common diseases in the world. It doesn't get a lot of attention because most people don't notice any ill effects from fatty liver disease until they're older. Although some people, primarily based on genetics, will get quite ill when they're younger. So, other things, a lot of people think potatoes are a superfood because they basically break down in the large intestine at the end of the alimentary canal and produce um, beneficial fatty acids, shall we say. But you also get that benefit from beta hydroxybutyrate or ketone bodies, which tend to be elevated in a carnivore diet because people are primarily just eating protein and fat. And fat metabolism lends itself to the production of ketones. Ketones are one of the sources of energy in the body. They're also one of the ones that's easy to measure. Like glucose, you can do a finger stick test and measure your ketone levels. A lot of people use the um, full time glucose measurements now. So, um, or what is known as a continuous glucose monitor. Technology like that's always evolving. I know that I don't think most people in the carnivore space use that technology full time, but the curious do, or people have trouble um, controlling their blood sugar, might want to know. There is a possibility of raising blood sugar from eating too much protein, but the increase in blood sugar levels tends to be minor. The body will preferentially burn carbohydrates and fat first to make fuel, and um, protein is generally reserved for reconstructing the body. Back looping back to the collagen, fructose binds with collagen, and collagen is one of the most abundant proteins in the body. It's the one that gives your skin shape. It's the one that gives your bone structure. It makes up the extracellular matrix, which the cells in your body adhere to. So it's very important. And one of the things that fructose, sugar from fruit primarily, does is it binds to it, and then um, the body's not able to repair the collagen because of the interference of the fructose. So that's another reason to avoid it. Again, these are all based on published peer-reviewed studies. I frequently post stuff like this in Autistic Carnivores and the Meat Mosaic Facebook group. So we have a Telegram group called Meat Mosaic where I frequently post these things and give a heads up to the videos. People can, in both the Facebook group and the Telegram group, you get to discuss um, these topics and share things like studies and anecdotal evidence. You know, get to tie it all together. One of the other reasons why carnivores tend to avoid carbohydrates is because there are many cancers that seem to be a result of metabolic disorder. This metabolic disorder seems to be linked to the consumption of carbohydrates, and many types of cancer feed on the sugar by fermenting. Once the cells have mutated into a cancerous state and they're no longer subject to control by the rest of the body, many of them use fermentation rather than um, respiration in order to develop ATP. And when they are deprived of sugar, they're not able to grow. And there's a strong argument to be made that the very act of consuming and metabolizing the sugar is what is the genesis for the cancer. Now, this isn't necessarily all cancers, but as Thomas Seyfried pointed out, there has been no um, tests done that show that cancer can thrive on ketone bodies or beta beta hydroxybutyrate or butyrate, which is a fatty acid, um, in the absence of carbohydrates and glutamine. So you take those out of the equation, and then cancer um, has less of a chance. It's less likely to even start. So, anyways, much has been written and much has been said and much has been studied on the subject. So it's nothing new. I know Warburg got onto this early on, quite some time ago, and wrote about it and wrote about the scientific observations without having a lot of the work that's been done since then. So you can follow somebody like Thomas Seyfried. I know he did a great video with Dr. Ken Berry recently, and he's done many others before, as well as writing books like Cancer is a Metabolic Disease. And the research goes on. So, anyways, that's one of the reasons why that and oxidative stress, which is sort of a general sort of problem with the metabolization of sugars. The when the sugars are used in the cells to produce energy, which is done by the mitochondria, by the way, they produce ATP. When they do that from sugars, they produce uh, ROS or or what am I trying to say?
Reactive oxygen
Reactive oxygen
species.
species. Thank you. Yeah. So the debris from the reactive oxygen species is what causes the corruption in the cell and the altering of the mitochondria. So this is not only believed to cause a problem in energy production, but also causes a problem with um, altering the mitochondrial behavior and thus leading us to cancerous states. And boom, we have a third. So let's say hi to Justin and Janice. The Jays are here.
Hey, everybody.
I was just doing a rundown of the general things that carnivores avoid. I was just talking about carbohydrates, and I was planning on moving on to seed oils next. You guys want to chime in on either topic?
Wait, seed oils
Put you on the spot.
or carbohydrates?
Carnivores, why we avoid carbohydrates and why we avoid seed oils.
Because they suck.
I'm sure Justin has plenty to say while you gather your thoughts.
Yeah, so welcome everyone to another episode of the Meat Mosaic. I apologize for my tardiness. I had a private client that I was seeing. So there we go. Still do some coaching. Tom, I don't know if you still do some coaching, but I feel like I get a little better each session. I don't know. This is kind of like a new field, right? Carnivore coaching. And so anyone that does it, I mean, we know what we're doing, we know what to say, but every session with every person's a little different. At least I
For
think
sure.
so. I try to pay a little special attention. Um, from doing it, there's one thing I know is that I think nobody that you see doing carnivore online is the way that you should do carnivore exact. So welcome everyone. I hope Tom's already asked you to please hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Throw a tomahawk on some comments there. Do you do some carnivore coaching? Do you feel like you could use some coaching? Are you carnivore struggling? Um, and are you carbohydrate struggling? That's what we coach people with. We coach people with the carbohydrate struggle. Um, Carbohydrates are sneaky because they turn into sugar in the blood. So a lot of people, over the last 2 decades have really caught on to how bad sugar is. But in that conversation, only now recently do we realize, or do people put it together, that carbohydrates cause all the same problems that sugar does, essentially. I think without the obvious, overt um, brain stimulus that's similar to cocaine or whatever that sugars cause. Um, and I think avoiding carbohydrates, you can also avoid a lot of trouble with addictive foods because all the cakes, candies, cookies, what have you, are carbohydrate. Not just the sugar, but also carbohydrate. So I think if you could just scratch that one away for 3 months, it makes everything else a little easier. Um,
Yeah, I was just kind of laying down some of the basics because I was really planning on having us talk about what we like to cook. But
mm,
I was starting out with some basic information, on carbohydrates, seed oils, stuff like that. So if you guys got any great tips on cooking you want to share later, put that in your Rolodex of facts to present. So
Hi, Christina. Great to see you.
I was just listening to an interview on Kelly Hogan's podcast with a heart doctor, and he was talking about he himself was like basically heading toward heart disease. He was like gaining a lot of weight, and he was like diabetic from eating carbs, and so he now is like fully carnivore. And she was talking about how she did her, what is it, the CAC scan.
yeah, calcium, coronary artery calcium score. Yeah.
Yeah, and then hers is like zero, and they were talking about like um, glucose levels and all those different things, but basically they're his statement was exactly what you guys are just saying, that carbohydrates are basically the culprit in causing heart disease and all of the other things like diabetes and everything. So it was pretty interesting to see that he said all of the recommendations he was giving his patients for how to prevent heart disease, he himself was doing. He was eating those foods, and then he said he was on his path to be ending up on his own surgery table because he was like, had all of the he was basically heading toward like major heart disease and ill health. So I thought that was pretty cool to have a heart surgeon on the podcast saying that that basically carnivore is where he landed after all of his personal discoveries of his own like recommendations as a doctor not working for people or himself. So I was like, if a heart surgeon says it, like, this is where you should be, this is where you should be, because that's the big thing. They talked about cholesterol in detail and everything, but I was just like, I get lost when they start talking about all that. But basically, he was saying that you're fine, carnivore is the way to go. And I was like, that's good enough for me in terms of not worrying about that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, the the way in which high blood glucose, perhaps high insulin, causes heart disease, perhaps isn't 100% clear, still kind of debated, but it seems to have to do with inflammation. So, I mean, when you really get into it, when you look at like an accurate diagram of coronary artery, it's actually very thick. It has its own blood supply from the outside, and it seems to be on the high pressure side of the heart where the blood's coming out. For some reason you get some sort of inflammation there in the wall, and then the body tries to cover that over with a band-aid, right? And that's the plaque. And then eventually that plaque is stabilized with calcium so it doesn't break loose, cause a stroke or something like that. So it was thought that that plaque was originally just a result of eating too much cholesterol. And then they said, well, it's the LDL. And then some people say it's the small LDL. But it really seems to be an inflammatory state.
That's
And
exactly what he said. He said that exact thing, which I'm glad you mentioned that, because he said that it was about that cholesterol got implicated because cholesterol goes where there's inflammation. And so when they were looking at like inflammation in the heart, they saw a lot of cholesterol, like sort of, located in that area. And then they assumed that it was cholesterol that was causing the inflammation. But he was saying that, like a high fat carnivore diet actually is anti-inflammatory. So then like the cholesterol doesn't need to go. Like if your heart's not inflamed, there's not going to be a bunch of cholesterol there. So it's kind of an interesting thing that people, it was like correlation, not causation or whatever.
yeah, I've heard lots of people liken it to blaming firefighters for the fire. The fire breaks out and then the firemen show up to fight the fire, right?
Yeah, they're like,
And
it's their fault.
one of the interesting things I read, that the plaque in the arteries actually contains everything that's in a blood cell. It's not just cholesterol. So all the components that are in a normal blood cell wind up in that band-aid like material. And then reflecting back on what you said about a CAC, or a coronary artery calcium score, once the body that inflammation and that plaque is there for any length of time, the body starts to cover it with calcium, which is harder to keep it from breaking loose. And that is what we see in the scan, is the calcium covering the um, the inflammation, right? So I've had that procedure done. I heard about it from Sean originally. He had it done. Sean Baker, I should say, Dr. Sean Baker, he had a score of 0. He's older than I am. Of course, he's a lot more athletic. I had a score of 6, which is actually a low score because we know people that have scores in the thousands.
Whoa.
And that basically tells you how much of the artery is blocked, how much accumulation there is in the scan. So I think even Ray, Justin, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Raymond, his CAC was like 600 or something?
Yeah, I think it was about 600 if I remember right.
And he's pretty darn fit.
Yeah, well
And then
but I think that was from
right.
damage before.
And then we've I don't want to bring up people who aren't here anymore, but we've done podcasts with people that had like 1,500, 3,600, scores like that. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. I had mine done by CAT scan, which is an X-ray, where they take like X-ray slices of your body or your torso or whatever you want. It can be done by MRI, which involves no radiation. I don't know of any place that does it by MRI, but that is typically the safer way to do it. But considerably more expensive too. I think I spent $400 for a whole body scan. And if you're gonna have that done, be prepared to find all kinds of things that are scare the pants off of you. So, anyways, but it's better to know than not know, right? Especially if you can not worry yourself to death. So we say hi to Sarah and Miss Patricia before we go too long. They both popped in. Thanks for being here, guys.
Hi, Sarah Sapien. Hi, Miss Patricia.
So, anyways, yeah, that's that. So we could go on and on about arterial health and all that, but I think we probably everybody here is probably pretty convinced not to eat sugar. I know Bart kind of likens it to the first sacrifice of high blood sugar is usually red blood cells. So anyone who's familiar with HbA1c or hemoglobin A1c score, that's a score of how much of your red blood cells have been damaged by high blood sugar. So that's usually part of a standard blood panel. And of course, anybody who watches TV or the internet sees all these ads for drugs to lower A1C scores, right? So a significant thing directly related to high blood sugar. And of course, there was that study that was done in San Francisco in the last couple of years where they noticed that women giving birth to babies with a certain A1C score over a certain number were much more likely to give birth to an autistic child. So there may be a link between autism and high blood sugar, or at least damaged red blood cells. And then it seems as though the endothelium or the lining of the arteries is the second thing in the body to be damaged by glucose. So a lot of reasons. I say, look at it this way. Can you eat a bunch of sugar and not damage your teeth? It's kind of the canary in the coal mine. At least I've always thought so.
Yeah, when I was a vegetarian, my triglycerides were super high. I remember that. I don't know why that would be, but I remember that being the case.
That's when you're storing a lot of energy in your blood. That's the sugar. So that's basically sugar bind with a glycerol backbone floating around in your blood. And that's the interesting thing, because a lot of people thought that would be related to eating animal fat, but it turns out that it's related to eating carbohydrates. Because almost everybody goes carnivore, their triglycerides go down. We hear that over and over again. I don't know if there's any published study to that effect, but certainly anecdotally, people report that. Maybe some of the people in the chat have noticed their triglycerides going down. Maybe they can let us know. So have you checked your triglycerides lately, Janice?
No, I haven't really checked anything. I feel very not worried about it. I just feel so good and so uninflamed. And you can just, I guess I never really knew till doing carnivore that you could feel like subjective health, like as a vegetarian, I was always super like paranoid about my health, and like I felt like worried about everything, and like everything just was like, oh, I better get everything checked all the time. But now I feel like I don't even.
And you always need another supplement when you're more like plant-based. You're like, oh, I need extra cholera. And you end up chewing on like green pill tablets or whatever.
I used to take athletic greens. I was just like, I mean, I had so many supplements that I tried. And I mean, maybe you actually subconsciously want all of that because you just don't feel right, But I feel like but we talked about this at our last talk about, I do start to feel like off if I don't eat beef. Like if I go more than a day, I start to feel like, oh, I need beef. So I don't know. I think that's something that there must be like the completeness. Ooh, what's that, Justin?
I think that was a truck or something behind me. Like, yeah. I think that's what that was. Yeah. It was like a big rig that like I was about to hit somebody. As long as the big rig doesn't start crashing through the glass sliding door, I think I'll be all right.
Well, as long as we catch it on video.
There you go.
I do wonder, are we going to talk more about seed oils? Because I feel like that's like, I don't know, carbs are pretty like obvious, like why they're
Yeah,
bad.
let's hit that next. I'll just comment that Miss Patricia said her triglycerides went
Oh,
from 7.2 to zero point 0.7 in the Aussie metric scale. So there you go. All right, on to seed oils. Come on, let's talk about peanut oil, coconut oil, corn oil, safflower oil, canola oil,
Rapeseed oil.
rapeseed oil.
olive
Lemon,
oil.
lemon,
Avocado
and not
oil.
and not Popeye's girlfriend either.
Her too.
Well, we could talk about her, but it's not technically a seed oil. But the olive oil and a guy who just eats spinach. What a combo, right?
Spinach is really bad for you. Huh? I used to eat so much spinach as a
Me too.
vegetarian.
Even when I was keto, I ate a ton of spinach.
Really?
Yeah. So, what do you know about seed oils, Janice?
Not too much other than since I've become like more of a dedicated carnivore, I don't I really don't like eating out anymore unless it's like a steakhouse or something that I know the meat is cooked pretty clean. Like I won't even get things like even if you go for breakfast, you know they're gonna cook, cook it in some kind of gross. Like I don't really eat Chinese food anymore. I don't eat out a lot anymore because I don't want things. Because I noticed that I would get like digestive upset. Like I became more sensitive to like even if I got like I don't know like Mongolian beef, but it was like cooked in some kind of like seed, like coated. You know how like Chinese food's always like coated in like peanut oil or like starch or whatever they do, but it was just started to make me sick. So I don't really know. I don't know too much about seed oils. I just know that I don't like them anymore, and they make me feel kind of sick. So I don't cook with any of it. I only cook with butter basically. So
Justin?
Yeah, so seed oils, again, are all these like plant oils. Some have been, a lot of that are to, lower LDL cholesterol and things like that are advertised, heart healthy, because they're low cholesterol and low LDL, which isn't even true, but that's a whole nother cholesterol discussion rabbit hole. Um, but their problem is, well, two things: an omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, in that they're very high in omega-6. Um, Also, that they're all pretty much rancid. Very few of them are actually pure, like even olive oils, even some expensive olive oils. And some of that's not necessarily on purpose, but due to, a famine in some country, or due to weather issues. And so the olives not growing as properly and things like that. Um, and also the body has a difficult time processing them, because of them staying liquid at room temperature. So like you cook them at like 400 degrees, they congeal in your body, and your body actually doesn't really have a way to process these oils out of it. And it's been said that it can take up to 7 years to process out some of these seed oils, now being linked to not just obesity, but also being linked to heart disease, um, as well, because of how inflammatory they are, because they're just so difficult for the body to handle, essentially. um, so yeah, again, on a huge list of things, on a huge list of things to get rid of, I'd say a simple list to get rid of, I mean, the carbohydrates and seed oils are kind of a toss up as which one's worse. I think, if I could, one message would be get rid of the seed oils. Even more than get rid of carbohydrates, just because carbohydrates are so varied, and it's for a bad reason, but at least with the carbohydrate, you still have the fiber there, and at least our body, you're absorbing a little less of it, and yes, you're causing other problems and other kind of damage. Um, but the seed oils are just something the body just can't handle. Um, so to me, I think they are worse, but it's a matter of degree still. So that's kind of me on seed oils. I avoid them. I do eat out. Um, and like I had it was really weird. So I went to IHOP. I don't know, I was really lazy, didn't want to cook. And I was like, Sarah, let's go to IHOP. And I hadn't been to IHOP in like 11 years because I thought IHOP was awful. I never had good food from IHOP. I was at Denny's, like I'm team Denny's over IHOP, but the IHOP's closer than the Denny's. So I went to IHOP, and for those that are international people, I don't know if there's IHOPs in other nations. It is called International House of Pancakes, but I don't know if it is in actual other countries. Basically, it's a Denny's or a Norm's. Norm's is absolute garbage. I hate Norm's. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Wow.
Uh, but,
I haven't been there in 20 some odd years, but wow.
So they had T-bone steak and eggs on the menu, the breakfast menu. And I was like, "Can I get T-bone steak and eggs?" And they said, "We're out of T-bone steak." And I'm like, "Damn it!" I was like, big sad. But I ordered, but they were like, "Oh, we have like, I think it was like burnt ends or it was like steak ends and eggs or something." I was like, "Yeah, give me that. Just make sure it's also like 10 ounces." And she's like, "Oh yeah, it's about the same." And I was like, "Okay," because it was like a 10-ounce T-bone, and so I was like, "Don't be trying to like play me here." And instead of pancakes, I got like an extra 2 sides of bacon. So I tried. All right. The eggs were obviously cooked in some kind of oil because they were like really like greasy and like squishy, not like buttery, but like squishy. And I was like, all right. And what was weird is that like the steak ends or whatever were sweet. I was like, why is this sweet? I don't know. Like there's no sugar or anything on what they said. So I didn't ask them or anything. I just ate it and was like, if I get a headache later, whatever, I'll know that caused it. And it wasn't terrible, but I was just like, what was the point of making this sweet? I don't why who wants like sweet steak? That's really weird.
It's
So
IHOP. They have to make everything sweet. It's probably like marinated in syrup.
yeah, I was like, is this marinated in pancake syrup? And of course, like, it was fried in like onion and something else, onion and mushroom, which I'm like, okay, I just won't eat them. But I was like, okay, even an onion and mushroom, that still doesn't explain why this is sweet. So this really kind of threw me off. I was like, man, maybe this was a mistake, but whatever. I was fine. I ate it and went about my day, and their bacon was whatever. But yeah, I don't. Um, oh, teriyaki sauce is used on their steaks. Weird. How interesting. They should put that like on the menu. What if you're like allergic
If
to
we don't
soy?
know, Raymond knows. Yeah, as I recall, they add pancake batter to even their scrambled eggs.
Ah,
Yeah.
huh.
I was having a busy morning and I stopped at a place that had good food and I thought, oh, I'm just going to like a breakfast burrito with, and skip the tortilla and the hash browns, and it was swimming in some kind of margarine / vegetable oil. It's like, damn it. So yeah, I didn't feel good later too. That's one of the things we notice. We don't. And even when you got steakhouses, it's even high end steakhouses. They frequently baste the steak with olive oil.
Oh no!
Yeah, so if you get a steak that's real shiny, that's probably because they've been basting it with oil. So yeah, that's a thing. Just ask any chef. They're like, oh yeah, a lot of places do that. So the same thing with fish.
Bart K.
Bart K. Hey.
What's up, Bart? Good to see you. So I guess we're bitches now. What's up, Bart? It's good to see you, buddy.
Great to see you.
Yeah, I don't know if the rest of you guys saw this, but there was quite a debate between Tucker Goodrich and Gary Taubes about what was worse, carbohydrates or seed oils. And Tucker Goodrich makes a very compelling argument for seed oils actually being worse than sugar or carbohydrates. So I enjoy the argument. I think Tucker probably did a little bit better job of arguing for seed oils than than did than Gary Taubes on sugar. But I think the discussion is worth its weight in gold because we've identified two things that are detrimental to our health, and you really have to get deep in the weeds to tell which one is worse. But the onset of seed oils in the diet, particularly hydrogenated vegetable oils, coincides with the emergence of heart disease. So it could be that seed oils in particular are responsible for inflammation in the coronary arteries and the rest of the body. So I know a lot of people say, well, it's an omega-6 imbalance. So omega-6 in high doses is inflammatory, and that sort of imbalance didn't exist in our natural environment before the refined seed oils, but we don't know for sure. And I think suffice to say that avoiding both leads to better health. So anyways, Bart's here, so Bart's quite popular. It's nice of you to drop by, Bart. We always have a little Bart time. Hopefully we'll get you on the channel. Maybe we can come over and disrupt your channel one of these days, because nothing's more fun than hanging out with Bart. So anyways, yeah, seed oils. And I always like to point out that seed oils are what we commonly call vegetable oils. So they're typically marketed as vegetable oils, but it includes sunflower oil, corn oil, canola oil, which is what Justin mentioned earlier, rapeseed oil. For some reason, they had a hard time marketing rapeseed oil, so they decided to call it canola oil. Canola oil means Canadian oil. So it's a crop that grows pretty well in Canada. And, Canada's limited growing season because of the cold climate. So they wanted to market something to the world. So they marketed canola oil, which is derived from a plant called a rape. And it's one of those seed oils that has to be squeezed out of the seed, which then it begins to oxidize, like Justin pointed out. But then it has to be deodorized and it has to be deflavored because it's very nasty. And since Bart here, I'll point out that not only do seed oils oxidize, but so do things like fish oils. So fish oils start developing aldehydes, which are toxic. And as I recall, Professor Bart did a study, selected some random samples of popular fish oils, and found aldehyde formations in all of them. So there's a good reason not to eat processed fish oil. So
did you ever see Judy Cho she did some sort of infographic on the process of making canola oil.
Really?
It really entailed it, like she had like butter on one side, it was like nothing, and then she had this insane infographic on like canola oil. After I saw that, I was like, I would never eat it again. It's so like processed, like it's they've really, from whatever the rape seed is, they really like bastardize it into making it something that you can like cook with.
Yeah, I know it comes out of when they grind it up or spin it up to get the oil out, it comes out just like this gray stinky sludge.
Ugh.
It's probably
that was used for machinery. That sounds about right.
Well, and that's how we got into the whole hydrogenated vegetable oil thing. Was somebody perfected hydrogenated oils to lubricate submarines for the German government or something like that. But it was such a limited market, they decided, well, let's try and market it to the world as a fat substitute. And now that's, things like Crisco and stuff like that are being pulled off the market. Manufacturers is having to take hydrogenated oils out of the food because its danger to human health is so apparent that, after it being on the market for almost 100 years, it's being withdrawn. So,
wow.
And isn't it also the cause of trans fats?
That is a trans. Yeah, hydrogenated oils are trans fat. Yeah,
trans fats. Yeah. So, like, is they're banned in California or they're banned across the nation?
I think they're being pulled,
like added to food or something, right?
Yeah, I think they're in the United States. It's being removed on the federal level. so the whole country.
But you could still buy them at the store and add them to your own cooking, but you're not allowed to
Yeah.
add it to pre-cooked food or
So
whatever that you
that's all
buy.
your margarine, your shed spread, and country crock, and what are all the other weird things we used to eat
And then
because they were
like extra
heavier.
soft butter because it has like canola oil added or whatever. So you got to watch
Yeah.
out. Like even if you're out there buying butter, you can buy like the wrong butter very easily because it'll say like it'll be advertised as extra smooth or extra spreadable, and you're like, oh, that sounds interesting, but you gotta read the back of stuff still, because that oftentimes still has, um, some of that,
Yeah, even
some
if it's
kind of
not
vegetable
hydrogenated, they
oil.
will still add vegetable or seed oils. So, anyways, just my message is just when we say seed oils, we're talking about vegetable oil. So, I know that's a little bit of a leap. We probably all learned that years ago, but I suspect new people might not know that yet. So, I like to point it out. So,
And the one that is kind of is coconut oil.
Yeah.
I still don't think you should cook with it, but I think it has other properties that might be useful.
so I went down that rabbit hole because I was keto before carnivore, like a lot of people, and coconut oil is sort of a staple. But I noticed when I ate coconut oil, I would get indigestion from it.
Yeah, me
And
too.
then one of the oh that's good to know somebody else got that. But the other thing was a lot of people touted it as an antibiotic. Like it it kills germs, right? And so my question was, if you eat coconut oil, it's in your digestive tract. What if it's killing off the good bacteria in your digestive tract? How do you know, right? And maybe that's why it causes indigestion. I don't know, right? And I
Mhm.
didn't find any studies that directly related to eating coconut oil, but it is indeed an effective antibiotic. Well, it doesn't just kill bacteria; it kills bacteria and funguses. So, topically on the skin, there's a lot of studies. I think I posted them in Meat Mosaic Facebook group and Autistic Carnivore. So there are a number of studies that do indeed show that it does is an antimicrobial. So again, the question is it good to eat? And like Justin pointed out, a lot of people like MCT oil, which is an extract. It's a medium chain fatty acids that are extracted typically from coconut oil, and that does go pretty much straight to the brain. So a lot of people get a bump from that. The brain likes that little burst of fuel from the coconut oil. But on the other hand, we don't know if it's killing the wrong microbiome in your digestive tract. And people like Janice and I have issues with digesting it. So,
Well, it's also very processed too, isn't it? I would think to get it in that state from. I thought that it was, but maybe it's not ultra processed. Um,
yeah, I mean, it has to be processed. It's, like you said, when you make butter, all you have to do is take some cream and beat it, and it'll turn into butter.
yeah.
But in order to separate out the different liquids in coconut, first of all, you got to get the liquids out of the coconut because it's not just the coconut milk, right? It's the fats are in the meat mostly, right? And then you got to separate them out. So I don't know much about the process, but it's definitely more processed than, say, butter or a chunk of fat off your ribeye.
Hey, I have a random question, but I've been thinking about this. So, you know how they say your body doesn't it take like 7 years to reconstitute all of your cells? So, if I've been a carnivore for almost 4 years and I was a vegetarian for like 10, does that mean that my body is completely brand new yet? Like all carnivore built now, or is it? Do you guys know anything about that?
Well, I mean, you were never made out of cellulose, so your body was always
Cellulose.
primarily meat and fat. So that's like that's a cheeky way of saying the body is always carnivore, even if you're vegan or vegetarian. But I know what you mean, and I think what you mean is as far as damage, inflammation processes, mitochondrials, things of that nature. I don't think there's an easy answer for that, and I think if you're feeling so well and you feel like you've kind of like reversed aged and things like that, um, there's certain cells, right? Like red blood cells replenish themselves after like 60 to 90 days or something, right? So it's like,
Mhm.
do you have carnivore blood cells? Well, yes. Do you have carnivore stomach lining? Yes. But as you move into more specific organ tissues and muscle tissues, and it kind of depend on if you had something like non-alcohol fatty liver disease. How
Mhm.
much of that did you have? Is that completely resolved? Did you have leaky gut or gut inflammation? Is that resolved? How far is that resolved? Are there any more ulcerations in your gut lining? You know, and all of that you'd have to spend, I think, quite a bit of cash on different little tests to get some answers. Bone strength, bone density,
Mhm.
um, things of that nature. Collagen, right? Have you built back maybe collagen that you had lost during your time as a vegetarian? You know, I don't know. I would think so, but yeah, at this point, it kind of really gets into individual parts of your body. You know.
Yeah, so I've got some things to say naturally. Number one, if we just go
Even
back,
though your face isn't moving.
if we just go back to the hydrogenated vegetable oils, we know that because the body doesn't eliminate that very well, we're not designed to digest it. So it winds up in the cell wall. So it actually replaces the tissue that makes up the cell membrane, and that causes issues with permeability, right? The particles that are meant to pass through the cell membrane don't do so effectively because it's been partially replaced with hydrogenated vegetable oil. So then how long does that take to be replaced? This is a good question because like you said, there's different lifespans. Some of the cells in our digestive tract only live about 48 hours. And then some of the other cells, like in our bones, like you said, can last like 7 years. So the question is, the cells that were developed on the wrong diet, how long does it take to replace them? And it seems to me that it would take more than 7 years because a lot of those cells were developed when we were on the wrong diet. So our body's trying to adapt to, um, it's probably primarily an epigenetic response, right? It's an environmental response. So you have to slowly replace those cells. Well, some are rapid, some take a long time, but they also have to do it um, based on the signals from a proper diet. So I don't think we know, like Justin said, we can only speculate. But, in some of the early ketogenic studies, they had athletes, professional athletes, that had already been past the theoretical fat adaptation period, 2 years out, and they were still seeing epigenetic changes.
Wow.
So that gives us some idea of the scale of just changing to a fat based diet, much less a strict, meat and fat based diet. So it's hard to say. And then you get into the complexity of mitochondrial behavior. The mitochondria are very much influenced by what we put in our body, both from their ability to make energy, but they also do a lot of signaling. They signal the nucleus in the cell, they signal other mitochondria throughout the body. And, if you talk to a lot of people, which I'm sure you both do on the carnivore diet, you notice things like arthritis and stuff like that, which are inflammation based, tend to resolve very quickly. But then things like severe anxiety and depression, they actually they taper off slowly over years typically. People notice it's getting better and they're relieved. And like you said, we're all kind of used to feeling so much better all the time. Um, but at the same time, we notice that things that were serious problems are still sort of tapering off. And it tends to be more the sort of psychiatric realm that seems to take the longest.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it just brain cells and nerve cells and neuroplasticity is a very complex process.
Well, yeah, and if we talk about neuroplasticity, I mean, really what it is the brain is constantly rewiring itself, right? And so you can imagine that part of the adaptation isn't just the cells turning over with healthier cells or more efficient mitochondria, but also that the way the nervous system is wired changes over time. And I don't think it's just a quick switch, right? It's more progressive adaptation. So if we've
But
covered what, go
since
ahead.
Bart K is here, or maybe he's left, but Bart is partnered with a company that sells a product that may help you with replacing those cells that have been damaged by uh, those pesky seed oils or what other damage you may have done. So yeah,
Yes.
if you're interested, go to Bart's channel. He has plenty of links to the product, and I think it works. When I took it, um, then I noticed a difference for sure. And do plan to get back on that product again. But I got a few other bills to pay first. Let's put it that way.
Yep. Yeah, the Cerule products, particularly, what is it? Stem enhance?
Stem cell enhance, yeah.
Yeah, seems to
That's
be
the
more
algae.
effective.
The algae. Is that the algae
Yeah,
product?
Yeah.
what are those little critters called? It's like a freshwater algae or something that produces a chemical that helps release stem cells. I forgot the name of it, but I'm sure he'll chime in if he's still here.
Mm.
So, all right, we talked about the basics, avoiding sugar, carbohydrates, and seed oils. Let's hear what you guys like to cook and how you do it. What are your staples?
I cook. Pretty much cook a lot of the same things. I cook. I like to cook my eggs in the European like extra fatty butter, like Strauss organic, low sodium, or no, lightly salted, not low sodium, lightly salted butter. I cook usually 3 eggs. I cook them like that. What's that guy Bronson Dant or however.
And
Yeah, I saw some video randomly of how he cooked his eggs, and it's so good because you just put the butter in, and then I put 3 eggs, and then I cover it and cook it for 3 minutes, so it gets like really crispy, but it gets a slightly like as if it were over. It keeps the egg yolk soft, but it gets a little white over the yolk, so it's almost like if you flipped it to make it over easy or over medium, but you don't have to flip it. So it's like a sunny side up egg with like a nice kind of like light coating, so the yolk's getting fully cooked, but it's super good.
nice.
And then I use my air fryer. I cook. I've been eating like Costco sells Wagyu ground beef, so
Hmm.
I cut the the little square pack like a regular size ground beef pack. I cut it into quadrants, and then I just like smash it and put it into the air fryer and make like little like sliders. So I usually eat that for lunch, and I just put like salt on it, and it's so good. Like I cook it like so it's like kind of like really crispy, not crispy, but pretty well cooked on the outside, but it stays kind of rare raw almost on the inside. That's kind of like a main staple. And then I always Costco's out of. I usually get prime ribeye and New York, but they're out completely of prime. So I usually just buy like now I'm buying choice like New York strip or ribeyes, and then I just put salt on that, cook that, and sometimes I cut it up and I eat it with. Um, I cut it up like kind of like carne asada style, and then I put like heavy like organic sour cream on it,
Mm.
and then I put a little like chili lime cholula to make it extra tasty. And then I eat a lot of bacon. I've been cooking in the air fryer. And I think it's Kim. I don't know if you guys remember Kim from MeatRx, but she had posted on Instagram about getting the little parchment liners for your air fryer. And ever
Hmm.
since she said that, I'm like, I cook everything in the air fryer because you just use it comes in like a pack of 100 for like super cheap on Amazon, and it catches all the grease, so that you don't have to constantly clean the air fryer like when it because I have the little ninja like the kind of the small one with the drawer, and it just catches all of the grease or fat, so you can just toss that out. Like I cook bacon, you toss it out. You cook your burgers and I've been doing air fried chicken wings, although I think they're not doing. I don't think I can eat those. Like I feel like I'm having some sort of like reaction to the chicken wing. And then I kind of cut out sort of cut out like cheese. I feel like I don't think I really like cheese anymore. Um, that's pretty much it. So it's like for me, it's like beef, bacon, butter, and eggs are the main staples. And then every morning I have decaf coffee with a like one or maybe probably more like 2 3 tablespoons of. Finally, Costco here got their grass fed New Zealand butter because Kerrygold got all messed up, so I replaced it with the like real dense like heavy butter.
Janice, you're messing with our product placements here. Come on now. We're just that close to the Kerrygold sponsorship.
Well, they
Right.
messed up their freaking thing. Ooh, brisket. Ooh, Raymond's getting brisket. But yeah, the liner tip, yes, that's everything. It's like my life is like I can get so I wake up in the morning and I'm cooking my steak, putting my makeup on. Like I know exactly how long everything is. All my temperatures. I can cook my bacon in 6 minutes. I can cook my air fried chicken wings in like 18 minutes. I cook my Wagyu sliders in like 8 minutes. I cook my steak in like 10 minutes and I can like run back and forth between the bathroom while I'm getting ready and doing my makeup and searing, and then flipping, and So yeah, I think carnivore is like so incredibly easy. Like cooking is so like it could not be easier. And you could be super lazy and like spend very little time for cooking. I mean, maybe I'm a lazy carnivore cook, but I feel like the simpler, like as I've evolved as a carnivore, like the simpler the thing is, the better off. It's like you get
Mhm.
that stomach upset. There's no extra variables in there. It's just like you're good to go. And everyone sees me every single day just like eating like an animal at lunch. Like like gnawing at this steak or like because the little Wagyu sliders, they see me like warm up just like it looks like kind of like four turds on a plate, and they're
Meat
like,
cookies.
yeah, they're like, what do you have meat cookies? But they look at you like that's all you're eating. It's like just this like these brown patties. Anyway, thanks for letting me share. That's like I feel like I hope people feel the excitement because I feel so excited. Like every single day, it's the same thing. I'll eat the bacon and the eggs, and it's like it's never. I get excited every morning to have my butter coffee. Like it never ends because like what tastes better than these, the foods. Even just
And health.
yeah, and you just feel good, and you have that like primal like craving. Like you're just like ready to eat that next meal. With something real good. Each thing is better than the other thing. So anyway, that's my cooking.
Excellent. Thank you, Janice. So lay it on us, Justin.
Yeah, so when it comes to cooking, it's about making it palatable. You're going to struggle if you don't like what you're eating. And that's on any diet. Now, I think carnivore is more of a lifestyle than a diet, blah, blah, blah. But for sake of argument on the diet, making it palatable. So, um, yeah, sometimes you're gonna cook something and it's gonna suck. I've done like pork chops and things, totally burned the hell out of them, put like a wrong seasoning or a wrong like sauce on them, and then they come out terrible. So you're gonna make mistakes. Sometimes you're gonna be a bit sad eating your dinner and your lunch, and you're gonna want to reach for something non-carnivore. But just to let you know, even that burned pork chop is still better for you than the cookies, the chips, the ice cream, um, the salad. So just wanted to throw that out there because not every, especially my generation, there's people that don't know how to cook. And so some people do have that as a barrier to this diet. Now I think cooking carnivore is easier than anything else because it's it's pretty easy to get stuff to temperature and you're not going to get sick, you know? And at worst, you're going to burn it and it's not going to be as tender and it's going to kind of not taste as good, but you're not going to like actually damage yourself from overcooking a steak. Just my opinion. Um Current meals though is I've been really into from Costco, so maybe we can get a Costco sponsorship instead of the Kerrygold sponsorship. Um,
Yes, that's
but
way better.
but from Costco, they do have, and I know this is a huge debate in the community, but they do have organic grass-fed frozen patties there. So if you're one of those people that are like, I really feel like I want to try this whole organic grass-fed thing, Costco's got, I think you get 15 of them, and they're like 1/3 pound. So there's math there. So what's it, like 5 pounds for $24 or so? So my kind of dinner is usually one of like three of those, sometimes four. But I've kind of learned that four a pound. So four is like a pound and a third of meat, and it's actually a little bit too much. But when I'm really hungry, I'm like, I'm every night. I'm like, is it a 3 patty night or is it a 4 patty night? That's kind of where I'm at. Um, and I throw on some Tillamook cheddar on them, and they're just heaven. A little bit of primal ketchup and a bit of mustard. I seem to be able to tolerate mustard now, so I'm pretty happy about that. Like the mix of ketchup and mustard is just, I don't know. To me, that's just so good. So I do those. My other staple right now is boneless New York strips I think from Sam's Club this time because they were a little cheaper. Um, but cooked on the Traeger grill. Ooh, they're on the Traeger, up to temperature, and that smoky flavor is just it's really good. Like it's a whole nother experience with the steak. And so that's kind of the other point I wanted to make, that if you are there's so many different ways to cook meat. You can use an oven, you can use an air fryer, you can use a skillet, you can use an open fire, you can use a barbecue, you can use a smoker. Now, different meats have different times and temperatures and etc. But if you're feeling bored or feeling kind of defeated, maybe change up your cooking method of your meat. Like Janice says, she likes air frying ground beef. I like air frying the frozen patties. But the different ways you cook meat brings out different flavors. So yeah, seasoning is a quick and easy way to change up flavor, but a different way of changing the cooking method. Um, even something like a crock pot, right, and maybe some bone broth, and just try out different cuts of meat with different cooking methods. We know how highly praised the ribeye and the New York strip are in the community, and for good reason too. But there's nothing wrong with a chuck roast, in a crock pot, you know, having it cooked. I've done a chuck roast in the air fryer, and that came out amazing. I actually liked the taste better. I'm learning that I don't like my meat wet, like the wet cooking meats. It just doesn't appeal. But the fried, crispy on the outside, and medium on the medium rare on the inside, right? To me, that's kind of the sweet spot. But everyone kind of has different tastes and textures, and so just keep experimenting. There's so many different ways to cook these meats, and even fun stuff like I've been going on about doing the carnivore pancakes, right, with egg and cream cheese, right, and then so just kind of, and I get time and effort, and my other that I do is I will take like 2 pounds of ground beef, just the big tubes of ground beefs, which are also known as torpedoes in the community, from either Sam's Club or Costco or wherever they serve them or sell them. And they're usually like the most cost effective carnivore is those 10-pound tubes of ground beef. I think I paid $2.69 a pound for 10 pounds. So that's really great pricing. But I will make little meatballs of like 2 pounds of them, and then that way I've got that cooked. And usually what happens is I throw those in later with some egg and make like an omelet with those, or I'll just sometimes just throw some cheese on them and just eat them that way, or sometimes add like a chicken wing as like a side or something like that. So what fits your lifestyle right now? Since I'm back at working at an office, um, I cook, um, a bunch of steaks. I cut up 4 or 5 steaks that are cooked, and I just have one container of the steaks, and then I just fill my container that I take that to work, and just eat the medium rare steak at my desk, and my coworkers are, wait, you brought steak again? You brought steak again? You brought steak again? You brought steak again? Don't you ever get tired of steak? And then like, so now they know like I'm carnivore and the cat's out of the bag and blah blah blah. And you know one of my coworkers is diabetic, and I see him eating candy, M&Ms, and you know and he loves his Cheerios in the morning, and that's him. uh but yeah, so being carnivore in office is certainly fun and a different experience. But yeah, I mean, just don't let other people make you feel bad about what you're doing. I mean, as long as you stay firm in it, and most people will just let you be or whatever. They're pretty mind boggled by it, and just got to but when they see you perform at such a high level, right, it's kind of like, well, maybe it is because he eats differently. I don't know. But I'll pass the baton, the talking stick, on to Tom.
Thank you. Thanks for your contribution there. Um, I am not actually bought an air fryer yet. I've been just fighting the urge to buy another appliance more than anything. But of course, you can't have a cooking conversation with the carnivores, anyways, without the air fryer coming up. I I do have a compact convection oven that's very similar, but I don't think it has the convenience. It takes longer to heat up and everything, so I tend not to use it. And then I have a regular convection oven, a full size one, and I never use it. So perhaps I need to do it because it's so convenient. And I wanted to circle back to the parchment paper. One of the things I'd been buying and wanted to start making were like those egg bites. It's like a mini quiche, and I'm pretty sure there's some muffin tins around this house somewhere because there's everything around this house somewhere. So I actually ordered parchment, like cupcake things. I haven't used them yet, but that was a thing I was thinking about doing, is just putting the egg and whatever, bacon and sausage or whatever in those, and baking them and making them, because they're expensive to buy. I was buying them at Sam's. I think you get 10 for $12 or something like that, which they're very convenient to eat. Like I mentioned in the past, most of my cooking I do fast. I eat 2 to 3 meals a day outside of the house. So I'm mostly prepping meals on the weekends and taking them with. I pack everything in glass containers and all that, which has been going well for me. As long as I make the time to prep, then, it cuts down on, I mean, I don't mind fast food. And I know there's plenty of people that do great by just going to Wendy's and buying hamburger patties or McDonald's or whatever. I don't have anything against that except the time, because I haven't been to a McDonald's and I don't know how long, because every time I drive by it, the line is so long. Where I live, it's just packed. So, but I do eat In-N-Out. You guys were going back and forth about In-N-Out on our WhatsApp chat. Yeah, I will. There just happens to be an In-N-Out right next to the gym. So if I'm hungry on the way to the gym, there's some Flying Dutchman in my future. If I'm hungry on the way out, if the line's not too long, which I've kind of got it down. I know when the line's not too long. So anyways, I typically do a lot of steaks in the skillet, cast iron skillet. Justin will tell you my stovetop has an assortment of cast iron sitting on it at all times. So that's my go-to. I have 2 barbecues, 2 smokers, and I hardly ever use them except when people come over. So, and it's mostly a function of time. I can cook 3 New York strips or 2 very large ribeyes in a 10 and 12-inch cast iron pan. So I can cook 4 to 7 steaks at a time on the stove top. And, while they're cooking, I'm doing other stuff, dishes and whatnot. So is the life of a bachelor, it's keeping up with it. So, but I'm hoping to make the egg bites. I do eat boiled shrimp. I buy the frozen shrimp that's already pre-cooked, and I eat that pretty much every day. I love shrimp. That's why I do it. And Of course, that's super easy. You defrost it. I rinse the ice off of them, and then again, I pack them in little dishes, and they're ready to go. I make a lot of chili. Um, Typically, I made a lot of chili out of ground beef. I'd frequently put cuts of steak in it. Today, I made chili out of nothing but ribeye, and I gotta say, it's probably the most bomb diggity chili I ever made. So I typically buy ribeye when it's on sale. I don't eat all the fat typically because it's like just a little too much fat. And I typically buy the choice, not the prime, because it's just got less fat and it's less expensive. Recently, I one of the stores I buy my meat at, I'll just say it's Stater Brothers. It's on the way home from the gym, on the way home from work, and I always get good beat there. They had whole ribeye roast for $5.99 a pound. I think I bought 6, 7, 8 of them in a week. So I cut them off the bone. It's a lot more convenient for me to cook a steak off the bone and then cut it up because it's just faster. They don't really fit in the container with the bone on, so I can't take them to work. And it's a pain in the butt to take a whole steak to work and cut it up. So I just cut it up ahead of time. But I've taken to cutting the meat off the bone, and then now I take the bones with the meat, what meat's left on it, put it in the crock pot and cook them like ribs. And that's really easy and quick. So I really enjoyed that. Um, that's the bulk of what I eat. I do eat the hamburger patties and stuff. I haven't gotten up to eating the wagyu like Janice, but it's very tempting.
What's
I did
brown?
see your Instagram post with all your wagyu.
They're so good, and it's only like $15.99, I think, for 3 packs, and
Wow,
it's so good.
that sounds awesome. I do sometimes buy the ground beef, the grass-fed ground beef at Sam's, and of course I buy the. Sometimes I buy the big torpedoes, but they also sell. They grind meat there in the store, so they grind. It's usually like chuck, and it comes in like a 4 pound, 4.5 pound tray, and I'll buy that frequently. Um, it's relatively inexpensive. I think it's usually under $5 a pound.
Mm.
So, and I get, I mostly eat New York strips are my favorite for whatever reason. We were always talking about, most carnivores are either New York strip people or ribeye people. So, but we all eat other cuts of meat all the time. I make a lot of beef jerky out of sirloin tip steak, and sirloin tip steak is one of those that's one of my favorite to eat raw. I know the raw eating raw is a controversial thing, and yeah, you could eat some contaminated steak and get very sick. I don't eat raw poultry. Don't eat raw wild game, but I do eat a fair amount of fresh raw meat, usually steak. So, and I make a lot of jerky because it's convenient. I do have a nice dehydrator. So, and that's a lot of times it's top round or bottom round or whatever. Put some seasoning on it. I make separate jerky for my dog for treats. She gets
Oh,
unseasoned beef and then also dried liver. So dogs go crazy for liver and she loves. So, instead of buying, treats at the store or whatever, she just gets meat for treats. So she's pretty old. I'm not sure how old, but at least 16 years old,
wow.
maybe 18 years old because I got her, she was a young adult, and I can't even remember what year it was, but it had to be like 2008 or something like that. So, and she's a nice, healthy, spry dog at her ripe old age. So anyways, we kind of eat the same thing. I do cook chicken thighs for her. She likes that once in a while, but she gets sick of chicken pretty quick too. And I'll eat a little chicken thigh, but it's not my favorite. I'd
Air
say,
fried chicken wings, I mean, chicken thighs are delicious. Oh,
yeah, that's what Justin's been
they're so
telling me.
crispy, and I want to plug the Scott's Santa Maria style seasoning. It's so good. It's like I went to Whole Foods and it was on the counter at the butcher, and I asked the guy, I'm like, "Is this good?" He's like, "I put it on everything," and so I got one, and they
Mm,
sell it on Amazon. But it is so good. I mean, it's like salt, and then it just has a tiny bit of some other things that gives it a light seasoning and not overpowering. Like I feel like it really enhances the flavor of the meat, but it doesn't like dominate like a lot of those seasonings do.
Hmm.
Uh,
So Scott Santa Maria style.
yeah, Scott Santa Maria style seasoning.
And we'll be
And,
looking for that. Not just for tri-tip, huh?
I put it on. I've been putting it on everything because it, like I said, it doesn't. It's not overpowering, so it's just it really gives like a nice, well-rounded flavor. But what do you guys think about the whole? I was listening to Lily Keen and she was talking about the Redmond real salt, which I mean I have it, I use it, but she was saying something about like the location, like Himalayan salt would be near like pollution versus the the Redmond salt mine is underground, so it's not polluted. Do you think that's really true about salt getting polluted? Like I never thought about that aspect of things.
Well, yeah, I mean, sea salt may, and we don't know to what degree and everything that, but like sea salt having microplastics and things like that,
Mm.
whatever sinks to the bottom. Um, the what is it? We've talked about this before, but Himalayan sea salt is not actually from the Himalayas.
Oh,
Um,
Well,
yeah,
technically it is, but not where we think it is. It's technically part of the tail end of the Himalayan mountains, but it's in like Bangladesh or something where they mine it.
oh,
so yeah, I mean, think of Bangladesh, third world country. I mean, there's processing and
Don't
things like
quote me on
that.
that. I'm not sure what country it was, but it was not where you would expected.
Um,
oh,
so I mean, I think, but they're just natural pollutants. So I mean, the problem was quote unquote um, pink salt, Himalayan salt, which I sent Tom an article. We never covered it, but about how Himalayan salt became a fad, basically. But
yeah,
according to quote unquote science, it provides no, like, if there are extra minerals, you got to remember that salt is a rock, and so we can't really break it down aside from the sodium chloride in it anyway. And the reason why it's so attractive or whatever, it's just because it's pink. It
yeah,
stands out in the store shelves. So it's kind of like more of one part marketing, one part natural pizzazz that it has. Um, and I mean, is there a pure salt? Is there a pure anything? We're all constantly being bombarded with toxins, right? Environmental toxins, and
right,
the supposed problem with the quote unquote Himalayan salt is finding like things like, I think it's cadmium, in
mm,
it, and in higher levels, and like sea salt, higher levels of lead possibly, and so, but I mean, does Redmond's have a process of filtering that stuff out? I don't know. I think they do. I think they claim that they do, or at least it's less than other brands. But it's not a sourcing issue. It's a that we're it's a the environment is polluted issue, if that makes sense.
mhm,
I use the Redmond Real Salt mostly because it's kind of a local product.
mhm.
And yeah, I don't believe a lot of the hype. I have Celtic sea salt like Miss Patricia, and I still use that too. Um, there's a whole I've been people that I've been carnivore long enough that a lot of people give me gifts like that because they're like, oh, you don't eat much. Here's some meat sticks and here's some salt. So I have all kinds of salt and seasonings I've
Well,
never
you
heard.
and me, carnivore gifts.
Right? We should start the carnivore gift basket.
Carnivore gifts.
Yeah.
Right? I'm inclined to believe that sources like Redmond's is better because it's been sealed in the environment, but then the Himalayan salt's been sealed underground too. I know all of those mine salts have to be tested for radiation and stuff like that
Oh,
because they're basically sedimentary rock. Like the water just concentrates and evaporates down and leaves the minerals behind. And sometimes they do find radioactive deposits in the in the salt. So,
oh,
but I don't think it's a real health threat. And I'm always suspicious of the advertising because, like I like to say, apple cider vinegar is rampant in every sort of health community known to man. Like it cures everything from toenail fungus to uh, heartburn. Some people say it cures cancer. And I'm like, I just think the apple cider vinegar people have the world's greatest subversive marketing group, right? So who knows what the truth is? But that'd be a fun field trip. We should just go to the Redmond salt mine.
There you
See
go.
what it's real.
I won't be going into any salt mine, Tom. No thanks. I already work during the day.
Hey, it's just a field trip. Yeah, I've been in some gold mines underground, and I don't think I'll ever go back. I still have like nightmares. So I don't like being underground. I'll be honest with you.
I just went to like a show near San Jose State, which was in this like underneath in like an old Victorian under a tattoo parlor, and you go downstairs, and it had like a really low ceiling, and like no, it had bars on the windows that were at like street level, and I was like, I felt like I was gonna have a panic attack in there. I'm like, I'm not going into a salt mine or a gold mine. Ugh.
I was in a gold mine off of Zizix Road. Anybody who's taken the 15 from Southern California to Vegas knows Zizix. It's like one of the last roads before you cross the state line, and there's mountains out there. And we used to go out there camping, and we'd get brave, and we'd go down in these abandoned gold mines. One time we're in the shaft where we had to crouch, and there was bats in there. We didn't know it. And so we disturbed the bats, and then all panic ensues, right? So you're trying to run out of there. I ran right into a rock and cut my head open. And then like a week later, this is a long time ago, so my grandma was still alive. I'm sitting in a chair, and she walks by, and she goes, "What did you do to your head? I can't believe it. Look at that cut on your head." And she's like, "How did you do that?" And I said, "I was running away from bats in an abandoned gold mine." And she just looks at me and she goes, "I don't know why you tell these wild tales. I don't know why the truth isn't good enough, you know." Well, Grandma, that's the only story I got. But yeah, the mines are scary, and they're not, the abandoned mines aren't maintained. There's chambers that are flooded. You're 500 feet underground, and you turn a corner and you see like flooded areas, and clearly rocks that have been falling, and abandoned mine equipment, and it's exciting and stuff. But you could walk into a pocket of gas or a flock of bats, or
it's getting worse.
Fall through a hole.
Carnivore makes you brave, but not that brave.
So yeah, the underground thing, not my favorite.
So no splunking then, Tom?
No, I think spelunking and cave diving are the last things I'd want to do in my life. And I'm not a fan of jumping out of airplanes. So would I do jump out of an airplane before I'd do cave diving or spelunking? So anyways, but we did no cooking down there, so I don't have any underground cooking tips.
Just bring a canary. That's what you do.
Yeah, next time. Definitely bring a canary.
Well, I guess we ought to strap up and splunk our way out of this episode.
Right.
Take that however you want to. There you go. I've never heard of, is it Maiden or Malden salt? Malden salt.
Malden.
Never heard of it.
Yeah,
So.
I think I have some Malden downstairs. I'm not exactly sure what makes it different, but again, it's one of those salts somebody gave me. So. It's funny because when Justin was here, we were cooking and we were looking for salt, and I was pulling out all these random weird salts, and then a box of Redmond real salt got delivered by Amazon while we were trying to cook. I was like, "Oh yeah, I ordered more Redmonds because that's what everybody likes." So.
I just got a delivery of Redmond today, and it was like I was very disappointed because when you order on Amazon, you look at the picture, and the salt shaker was like this big. It was like this teeny tiny, and I'm like, "What the hell is this?" So I was disappointed, but I guess it's a travel size, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, Miss Patricia mentioned the smoked salts. The smoked salts are very good too. It's kind of a nice way to easy way to add some of that smoky flavor to your meat.
Oh.
And truffle salt with gold flakes if you want to get really fancy.
Fanciest of all, right?
Right, there you go.
Truffle salt with gold flake.
Oh, I did want to give a special shout out to Sous Vide. So the three of us here are kind of peasants, so I don't think any of us sous vide. But I mean, if you've got 20 hours to spend on a steak, like go for it. It's
Well,
amazing.
I sous vide in the crock pot. Remember, I
Uh,
would vacuum back. Well, actually, I did it in mason jars and I did it in vacuum sealed bags. I gave it a try. It's good. Again, I'm always busy and in a hurry, so you know don't do it very often. But if you're adventurous and you got time, it's nice. It's like smoking. Justin and I were talking earlier about smoking. It's smoke like falling off the rib bones. There's nothing better. But damn it, you got to have some time and some patience, right?
right. Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys remember, but we were filming a video a long time ago, and my smoker caught on fire while we were filming, and I had to run outside and put it out. That was a couple of years ago.
Oh my God. I
So I
forgot
have it.
oxtail. Does anyone? I eat oxtail. That's good. If you slow cook it, they sell it. Well, there are a lot of Asians here, but in Costco they sell these 2 packs of oxtail, and I slow cook it with I just buy those bone broth powder packets. Talk about lazy. I use that as like the stock, and I slow cook it in a pot, and it's so good. If you never had oxtail, it's so tender and fatty. It's got that kind of like stringy, like carnitas texture.
I didn't even know they sold
so
bone
good.
broth powder.
Yeah, it's so good at Costco. It's called Bare Bones. I use it all the time during the winter because it just comes in little like kind of like the little like sticks, and you just cut off the top, and it's so good. I make like hot and sour soup with it. That's another good easy thing. I use a couple packs of the beef bone broth, and then I just use eggs. I put egg flour. I put apple cider vinegar and then I like cut up either ribeye or New York and just put like the little chunks of beef in it, and it's so good. Like during the winter, like super easy.
That does sound delicious.
Yeah, I'll make it for you guys in the winter.
Yeah, I
Freeze it,
occasionally get
send it over.
oxtails, but the oxtails tend to sell out really fast, so a lot of times they don't even have it.
It's so good.
I've only made them once, and I didn't like them. Like I didn't like the taste. Maybe I didn't cook them right or something. But I don't know. Maybe someone needs to cook me oxtails.
Well,
but
that's how you
I
cook
didn't
it.
care for them.
The beef, like if you cook it in that beef bone broth stock, it gives it like a nice. I don't know if I'd like it plain, like the flavor.
Yeah, I did it plain. Yeah, I think it was just like salt and like water or whatever.
Yeah, I don't think it would taste good like that.
Yeah.
Have you ever wondered if all oxtails are just cow tails? They're not actually off oxes. Like that's just.
They are, right? Isn't it just a cow tail? I think they just call it oxtail, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I think that's all it is. I think they just call it that.
Next, you're gonna say that buffalo wings aren't from real buffaloes. Come on, Tom.
Rumor has it.
Oxtail's so good though because it's fatty and it's gristly. So I always like gnaw all of that like gristle off.
Yeah, I'm down for some gristle.
Yeah, I love gristle. I always eat all of that. I guess I am Chinese.
Hey, are you eating chicken feet? Because
I do not like chicken feet. My dad would eat like a lot of that, like a huge pile of like the feet. He'd be gnawing off. That to me is just. I'm not that Chinese.
my wife absolutely loves chicken feet. That's like
all right,
her
yeah,
favorite
she's
thing.
Chinese.
Chicken feet.
Yeah, his wife gave me chicken feet when they were visiting. They were quite tasty. A lot of work.
It's just like the visual that I can't,
I just think they're too much work. Like she took me out to eat chicken feet, and I like almost choked and died. I was like, you didn't tell me there's like an all bone. Like it's like basically skin and bone is what you're eating.
And they're very unattractive. So gross.
Yeah, they're not exactly
It's a Halloween dish though, like for like a Halloween party. Gross.
Yeah, it's basically just nibbling cartilage off a bone, tiny little bone.
if someone would like scrape all of that like cartilage off and like serve it to me, I'd probably eat it. But I don't want to have to gnaw it off myself.
Yeah, I never thought of oxtail as being like a Chinese dish. I thought, actually, if anything, I thought it was uh, really popular in Mexico.
Oh
But
yeah, you're right. They do too. That's why in where I live, like East San Jose, you've got Mexicans and Asians, and so like they always have oxtail at Costco, like a huge
so
pie.
you're saying all of California, basically.
Yeah, right. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, I think if I went to another state, it'd be easier to get the oxtail. They wouldn't sell out so fast. But to think about it, it's a very small part of the cow, so
Yeah,
not enough to go around.
yeah, and it's pretty expensive because they know it's in high demand. You know.
Yeah, that was one of the cuts of meat that's definitely gone way up in price in the last 10 years. The oxtails. Yeah.
Yeah, they price gouge now because they can.
All right. Well, I think we hit it good. Ramus's Main Street Station in Vegas caters to Asians. Best oxtail soup in their buffet. Well, good to know.
All right, we're
That's
gonna
what we
get
need to
that
do is meet up in Vegas.
in
I know Raymond would show up.
Hey, are either of you making it to Keto Con next week? Nope.
Oh, it's in
no
like
one bought tickets.
4 days. I'm not going to make it.
Like,
I really wanted to go. I haven't told MNS so I'm not going to be there. I haven't told Ray I'm not going to be there. I never got around to messaging Lisa because I'm pretty sure Dr. Lisa's going to be there too. But I knew it was iffy, and I really want to go, but I seriously doubt it. Oh, Jules just popped in. Hey, Jules. Oh, well, before we quit, you guys want to recommend a particular air fryer?
I just used the little Ninja, the cheap one on Amazon, like the first one. I think it's a 4-quart. It's small and then you can buy like the parchment liners. I think yeah, it's just the Ninja 4-quart air fryer. It's like $99 on Amazon because I don't have a lot of counter space. My place is only 700 square feet, so it's perfect for a bachelorette. You talked about them being a bachelor, Tom. I'm a bachelorette.
Right.
I like the Ninja Foodie Grill. It does have like the grill plate. So if you grill up a steak, it get nice grill lines, and um, if you do it just right, it's almost like barbecuing, but the flavor isn't quite there. But at least you get grill lines and get a nice sear on it. So that's the one I use. It's really really cool.
What brand was it?
Ninja Foodie Grill. That's what it's
The
called.
Ninja Foodie Grill. All right.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah,
almost ice cream time with the Ninja Creamy or whatever it's called. Yeah.
yeah. The thing that really appeals to me about the smaller air fryers is that they're so quick, right? My convection ovens take a while to get to temperature, you know,
Yeah.
and then it's kind of like, well, I think the smaller ones heat up faster. So it looks like Sarah uses a Cuisinart. So something smaller like that seems like it would be a lot more user friendly given my time constraints. So
Yeah, and you definitely should always preheat a little. That's one tip. It's like I always
Oh yeah, always preheat. Yeah.
how long do you think they take to heat up?
mine's like 2 minutes because so little.
Yeah, because my air it's sold as an air fryer, but it's really just a convection oven. It's like a size of a large microwave, and it's like at least 10 minutes to warm up. So 2 minutes is way more appealing.
Yeah.
So anyways, awesome sauce.
Awesome.
Got a lot of sweet tips tonight. Thanks everybody for all your tips, and never did get to speculate why Razongus has never had shrimp. That's just
Only excuse is shrimp allergy. That's other than that, I'm like, what are you doing?
right. Yeah, it's hard to go wrong with shrimp. Although I do, one of the people that I coached had said that they liked the shrimp, but they felt like they were just eating it because it was sweet. And I was like, what? Because when I eat shrimp, I don't think of it as a sweet food. I think of it as a salty food. So
Shrimp is sweet to me.
interesting.
Yeah.
The things
I
we
get
find
that.
out.
Mhm.
All right, kids. It's been a good one. I hope people got something out of it. Everybody out there, feel free to pass links on to our video. Send to your friends and enemies equally. Leave it on play. Play the whole video list for your cats and dogs while you're at work. You're in the mall, just dial it up on all the computers at Best Buy. Just let it rip. So, anyways, Raymond says he has a 1500. Look for any air fryer over 1500 watts. Well, that's like hair dryer level right there. 1500 watts. I don't charge my electric car at much more than that. So. Hot tips. We had
I
seasoning,
want to meet
salts, and air fryer.
Raymond.
What's that?
I want to meet this Raymond.
Yeah, he's cool, dude. He
cool.
actually
Yeah,
lives in the
Raymond's really-
neighborhood. So he met up with Justin and Joe and I at In and Out. So we got to meet Raymond in person.
Mm.
So anyways, well, it was a good time, everybody. Another fun video. Thanks for coming. We're all glad to see Janice back for some action. So she brings a lot to the table. It's a lot easier to have her in the conversation and just instead of me and Justin dorking out the whole time.
I'm the one who doesn't know anything and hasn't researched anything.
You know plenty. You know how to cook.
Mine's just based on what I like to eat
That's what's most important.
and how I feel subjectively with no science-backed knowledge.
All right, we'll start sending you all the papers.
No, the papers, please.
You're probably better at reading them than I am, anyways. So, well, until next time, eat some meat. Feel better. Whatever you do,
don't fall down
the
the sea
card
hole.
hole.